Hello. Hello? Okay.
Hey there.
Sorry, keep my voice mute over here.
Okay, sounds good. You can hear me okay on this?
Yes, I can.
Perfect.
A little bit dark in the back. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
just.
the sun's coming.
Oh.
It keeps moving closer to me, so I'm hoping at a certain time it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think only if you're close to the camera, then it becomes dark.
I'm
Now
okay.
it's better. Yeah,
Cool.
you're good.
Oh, some people coming on. Hi, Brooke. Hi, Liz. Brooke left.
Do I need a bench or something?
No, I mean, I'm going to show you a shoulder variation off of a bench, and you can probably do it lying down. I just like a little bit extra space to open my shoulder. It's probably something you guys will like you could do at home on like a bed or a bench, but I'm just going to show you that shoulder variation for
Okay.
just a little bit of stretch.
I think my son was playing earlier, so my name shows as Adam.
Yeah, I saw Adam on there and I was like, I don't think that's your name. We'll just wait a second. Still right before 6:30. So bright.
I just wish the wind was a little bit better because it's so windy outside. You can't do anything outside.
Today was really brutal. I was working, going in and out of people's houses, and like my car door was getting blown shut. It was not fun.
Wow.
It wasn't the best. All right. That Coop or Logan? Maybe we'll
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I'm sorry about the light for people that are just coming on. Hi, Ehab.
Hi, Alex.
I'm like trying to get out of the light. The light is so bad. Hold on, I'm gonna like move my setup. Ugh. I'm hoping this is like a little bit nicer. I think this will work. The sun is like, hi, Brooke. Okay, so it's just about 6:30. More people are jumping on. So I think most people here know me. If not, I'm Alex. I coach here at Boston CrossFit exclusively. Well, I'm moving at the end of the month, but hopefully I can come teach a few classes once the gym opens back up so I can see all you lovely people. But so tonight, the whole thing I wanted to go over was like overhead squat mobility. So I hope you guys had a chance to open up the PDF. I'm basically gonna go through that step by step today. I'm actually gonna grab my handout. And we can work through, so you can like feel free to do the movements while we're doing them or try certain exercises and just like jump on, either raise your hand or like shout it, just turn on your audio and shout at me so I can like evaluate and see your movement. And then, you know, hopefully I can give you some feedback while you're doing some of these tests. So we're kind of going through this like a PT would. So overhead squats are really complicated because they involve a whole bunch of wrist mobility, shoulder mobility, spine mobility, hip mobility, knee, and ankle. It basically maximizes every joint. So if you have a deficiency in one of your joints, you're going to be very exposed in this movement. I think Ehab's like, yeah, I know all about that. So this is like a movement that I'm sure most people feel very challenged by. I know today I did them in my workout and still feel uncomfortable overhead squatting, and I've been doing it for 10 years. So today we're gonna go through each joint and we're going to hopefully find some of your sticky points so that during this, sorry, Ehab feels personally attacked. During this webinar, you can kind of use the guide, like check off the tests that come back positive for you. So you have like a guided mobility that you can do every day of this quarantine so that you can come back to the gym and like feel a little bit more comfortable overhead squatting. So I will demo an overhead squat for everyone first. They'll probably be really cute. So try to get far enough away from a computer is tough. So barbell's about 6 inches above your head. You will descend all the way down and stand all the way back up. What that looks like from the side. So key movement qualities we're looking for. We want the stance to be about shoulder width apart. I'm trying to monitor this. Wait, Rehab Ehab's my favorite name for him, I think. That's so great. But Ehab is truly a testament to improving every movement in CrossFit the fastest because he puts so much time and energy into stretching, into mobility work, into PT stuff. And like, if we saw a video of Ehab on day 1 to now, it'd be like monumental change. So I think he's the first to say that just doing this stuff, even a little bit every day, actually does make a difference, and you will get better at it. It's just hard to see the change over short periods of time. So back to the movement qualities, we want feet about shoulder width apart. That may vary for you based on ankle mobility and hip, and we'll go through that. We want to keep a neutral spine throughout the entire movement. We want the hips to end up below the knees. And we want the barbell about 6 inches above our head. So that might entail a little bit wider of a grip for some people. Some people can pull off that narrow overhead squat position fine. They have the mobility. If you're stuck, a little bit wider grip. So common faults that we see, I'm sorry about the sun, guys. I'm trying to find a space in the gym, but it is all lit up. Common faults that we see is an excessive forward torso. So maybe when you're overhead squatting, it kind of looks like this. Right, you have trouble keeping your chest up nice and tall throughout that movement and keeping that neutral spine. What might happen then is your kind of shoulders get into this like inactive position versus this very active position, right? So I want my armpits facing forward. So what you might end up doing is kind of dumping forward into the shoulder and then squatting from there. You also might kind of hip hinge versus knee bend like you saw before. You might send the butt back really far versus really trying to bend the knee. And that might, again, come down to ankle mobility. And then a lack of depth is something I see quite often with overhead squats. People just don't feel very comfortable getting all the way down because a lot of the time there's a giant mobility restriction somewhere. So we're gonna go first through the ankles because this is probably where like 80% of you are gonna fall into like some type of ankle restriction. So I'm gonna try to demo this on that box over there. I'm gonna bring you with me. So the first test is a knee to wall test. So if you guys want to find a wall, you're more than welcome. I'm going to do it to the box. What you're going to do is you're going to take one hand, you're going to put it flat on the floor, and you're going to put your toes, you're going to put that against the wall, and then your toes right at your pinky toe. From here, you're trying to move your knee. You're trying to keep your heel in contact with the floor, drive your knee to the wall. So what you should see is that your knee should touch the wall without your heel lifting up. Okay? So again, just that hand width from the wall, drive that knee forward. You should be able to, that's like, if you have enough ankle mobility, that's what you should be able to do. So let's have people try it. Brooke's a no. Type in if you're like a yes or no on this movement. I'm dying in the sun.
Sorry, I stepped out for a second.
Yeah.
Is this with the thumb or without the thumb?
Without. It should be like 4 fingers.
Okay, good.
So my left is not, but my right is pretty easily can do that.
Have you had like an ankle injury on your left side? Yeah. Is that your bad one that you wear the brace on?
Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore?
Yeah.
So that might be why, right? So I see a lot of people, if they're really severely limited in ankle, I can pretty much tell if they've had an injury or like ankle like sprain on one side. Cause like, I think I saw a meme one time that your like ankles just for some reason like never come back to normal. And that's how I think a lot of people feel. They twist it one time and then never again can they get the same range. Anyone else? How did everyone else do? Maybe okay. All right, so
I'm good on the right, I'm good on the left, but not on the right.
on the left and on the right. Okay, so again, kind of faulty. And what you might see is you might start up like twisting in your overhead squat. So if you have like a lack of range of motion on one side versus the other, you might start to get like a twist as you have like more range of motion here than here, or something kind of funky like that. Or you just can't get down as deep. So if your heel lifted up, you didn't have the range of motion, the first thing you can start to do is elevate your heels to squat, just at least so you can start working on the overhead squat. So say you come to class, get some plates or something to put underneath your heel, because that is going to help tremendously, giving you a little extra range of motion so that you can start to load up and like get better at overhead squatting. Granted, it doesn't entirely fix the ankle issue, but I can, there's a million things that you can do for ankles that I think most people know of, and I'm gonna grab a kettlebell real quick and show you. Okay, so, sorry, there's no like kettlebells here anymore. There's only like 53s. I'm just not about to do that to myself. So I had to get my little one from the car earlier. So, okay, Kelly's fine on both sides. Good, Kelly. So here, what I want you guys to think about when you do an ankle stretch is keeping, first, if it's two, I'd start with one foot at a time. First, you wanna make sure to keep the arch in your foot. Might be a little easier. Shoe off. So you wanna keep an arch in your foot. You don't wanna flatten that whole foot out because then you're not gonna be really stretching the ankle itself. So you wanna keep the arch in your foot. You wanna put that kettlebell on the top of the knee while keeping the heel in contact, the arch in the foot, and you can kind of give yourself a little cue underneath the arch. You're going to push forward. Now the thing here is you need long durations of stretching. So you're gonna have to sit and be comfortable for a little while here. This may be a really useful skill for you to do prior to overhead squatting, and you will probably feel a whole heck of a lot better with it. Now, as you become comfortable with doing 1 foot at a time, you can start to do the double and do both feet at the same time. Again, trying to keep the arch. So you can kind of lift your heels up, and then what I want you guys to think about doing is driving those knees forward. So from the side, what that'll look like, you'll kind of lift your butt up, and then you're going to shift the knees forward, trying to keep that heel, again, on the floor. So you'll come back up, and you'll shift the knees all the way forward. All right, so that is definitely an easy quarantine drill, because I'm sure most of you have like a lightish weight or kettlebell that you can use. And then that's basically my main tip for ankle mobility stretching. There are some things you can do with bands. Oh my gosh, there are some things you can do with bands, but I don't think for the quarantine, it's gonna be as feasible for you to do in your house. So lots of long durations of stretching, and maybe avoid like thick running shoes for the time being, because that may also kind of contribute to shortening your Achilles tendon. So yeah, that is what I would suggest to fix that. Now, who has like a bunch of trouble overhead squatting, like to depth, or feels like, do you think your ankles really limit you in overhead squats? Ehab or Brooke? Yeah, do you guys feel that if you elevate your heels, you feel better, like in lifting shoes or on like plates or anything like that?
I haven't tried lifters yet. I've considered getting a pair, but I felt like it'd be more like I should just fix my ankles instead of
like a crutch.
Yeah.
Have you ever squatted on plates before?
Mm-mm.
No. I would everyone give it a try, really. Just like after this, just put like either like 2 thin books down, or 2, if you have 2 small plates, elevate your heels and try to squat, and you'll find that it's probably a lot easier. I think it can be a crutch to use lifting shoes and plates, but I think if it allows you to load that position, in the long run, you'll probably end up getting more flexible and gaining more mobility than if you just like struggle not going through the full range and just doing like that little bit of extra ankle work on the side. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's another component to ankle movement. So a lot of the time we really just focus on just pure knee over toe, but there's kind of a little bit of lateral movement that has to happen here at your tibia, right? So the joint, your ankle has to be able to move laterally. So if you see my foot is staying flat. What I'm not doing is this. My foot here is staying totally flat, and I'm able to move my tibia quite far, right? While keeping my heel in contact with the floor. So normal range of motion here is about 20, look, you see this angle here, going back to like middle school? You want about 20 to 30 degrees. So if anyone has like a broom or a PVC, let's check that too. And you can have like a partner, if you were lying flat on the floor, kind of help you look at this too, and just see how much you can move that knee kind of out to the side. This has a little bit to do with the hip, but a little bit to do with this lateral movement of your tibia. So let's try that, because if that's restricted, that will also make overhead squatting really, really difficult. Let's see it. Anyone? Oh, you guys have PVCs. Good.
Is a side view better here or a front view?
Front probably, because I want to see. So your PVC will be right off your big toe.
Okay.
Knee starts in connection with the PVC, and then you'll come out to the side. Can you laterally move your tibia and over your foot? Trying to see. Elmer looks good. Yes, there's good movement there. Ehab, you have a little restriction there, Ehab, right? If I
Mhm.
remember.
Yeah.
Oh, Brooke's got nice, Brooke. That looks good. A little like a little tight, but okay. Kelly, how's it going over there? Kelly, you're pretty flexible, if I recall. Oh, I can't hear you. You might have to like type it in. Logan, how are you doing over there?
I'm crushing it.
You're crushing it.
Yeah.
So basically the exercise then just becomes okay, Kelly feels like a little bit restricted there. I would say if you're like, if you run a lot or did a lot of like running in your past, probably gonna have some type of restriction here. But really the lateral tibial glide, so you trying to come forward and out, ends up being the exercise. It kind of sounds silly, but we just kind of work a lot here. But when we squat, we really need to be here. So I would incorporate that angle or that angular movement to that exercise. All right, and you can incorporate that with the kettlebell as well. Okay, so if we really think the ankle's at play, the lateral movement is going to be really important. So a lot of people can just be fixed with the PVC or with some of these ankle drills. The next part we're going to move on to is hips. Hips, I would say for most people here, probably don't have a major hip restriction. How we fix hip restrictions is most likely going to be with like changing up your stance or your toe angle. What's interesting to note really is this. Well, I'm just going to take off all my shoes now for all these things. So we can test your hip flexion, which is like how much your hip bends, right? I can lay flat on the floor and pull my hip up. Look, so I have plenty of movement, right? My hip ends up below my knee. What is interesting is that if I play with the angle, and this is kind of an awkward angle, but so you guys can understand, if I play with the angle of how I'm pulling my hip in, what you'll see is I'll have varying levels of hip flexion. So if I lay flat and I bring my knee directly towards my chest, this is about how far I get. And before I feel tightness. If I move my legs slightly out to the side, look how much more range I get. All right, so my hip is a little bit happier, out in a little bit of what would be called abduction, right? So out laterally. If I just kind of take note at where my foot is in relation to my body, like my shoulder, it's about shoulder width for me. For some people, they might feel wider. They might be able to go further. I start to get restricted if I go out wider, and I'm pretty restricted if I go narrow. But right here is that sweet spot. So try to play with that angle and see if there's somewhere that you feel more comfortable. Take note of where your foot is, and that's where you're gonna wanna do your squat stance. So if you've ever been concerned with your squat stance, I know if I go really, really wide, I kind of get stuck. I'm a little bit happier right here, a little bit narrower, so about that shoulder width. So let's see what you guys feel. If you kind of feel those like bony blocks in your hip, if you've had like a hip labrum tear or anything like that, you might feel more comfortable in one position versus the other. And you might feel comfortable too. We're gonna try to do some rotation after this, and we'll find like your perfect amount of rotation. Wait, Brooke, I can hear you.
Sorry, you want us to do this laying down, not actually.
You can do it laying down, yeah. Or you can place with squat like stances in standing too, and just kind of find like where you feel perfect, where you get the most amount of hip flexion. And while you're there, you can also test your hip rotation. So with your hip, your knee right above your hip, you can see how much your leg rotates in and rotates out. So with your foot, I'm gonna try to do this in like another really awkward angle for you guys. So with your foot going out to the side, that would be internal rotation. With the foot going inwards, that's external rotation. You should have about like 35 to 45 degrees of each. And this is going to determine kind of how your hip joint is set in your socket. So some people feel really, really comfortable, almost like in a plie stance with the toes pointed very far out to the side, like here. Some people feel really comfortable squatting, toes totally straight. If you have an ankle problem, you may feel a little bit better toed out, just a bit. If you have a restriction internally or externally, it's likely due to like how your hips in the socket. So you might just try to play around with toe in and toe out. You guys likely squat enough that you have found your like very comfortable, perfect squat position. This is just to kind of give it a double check and make sure there's not like significant, you know, that we didn't find something totally significant. This is usually something we find with people when they initially start CrossFit. Oh, good, toes out feels a lot better. Good, Kelly. So if you're squatting with your toes pointed out, you feeling good? Okay, sweet. And the most important thing is that if you can maintain your knee in the direction of the toes and they're very far out, like in that plie stance, then that's fine. You can squat there all day. That is A-okay by me. Okay, so if you find significant restrictions in internal and external rotation, I try to put the fix as, they're called hip 90-90 pails and rails. Ehab probably knows what these are because he probably does them a lot. But if you Google that term, they will come up with like really good YouTube videos. What it is, you're going to put your legs out in like 90, so everyone can do that. And Ehab, if I teach them wrong, would you please jump on and tell me? Okay. I don't do these often. No 80-year-old is going to get in this position with me. They would break in half. So I've only had one that probably could do it. So what you do first is you just start to put pressure, trying to push the front leg into the ground, slowly building up force and tension. So you're really trying to push into the ground until you get like 100, right? Is it like you work your way up, Ehab, like to 25, 50, 100%?
Yeah, I would say like first for like maybe somewhere between 30 seconds to a minute, what I usually do is I just like sit, trying to like maintain like an optimal lumbar curve. Mm-hmm. And then when that minute's up, I like push down as hard as I can, mm-hmm. like push my knee down as hard as I can for 15 seconds. And then you try
to pick your foot up, right?
Yeah, and then after that, like pick my foot up, my back foot up for 15 seconds and then repeat.
Yeah, so I've seen them where you can do the pushing the front leg into the ground, and then you try to almost pick up this leg, like you almost try to lift it higher with your muscles, and you really might not move very far, but you try to lift. Mm-hmm. And then that can help you open up again some more range in that hip. Yeah. And then you go and focus on your back leg.
Yeah, lifting with the back leg.
Yeah, I've seen it both, like where you lift with the front. Oh,
okay.
But the back one is very, very hard to lift. So then you do the same thing. You kind of stretch in this direction, and then you try to lift up the back leg to kind of work on that internal rotation.
Correct.
So if you guys give that a try. It's really, really difficult.
I was actually just doing this right before this because I figured I was going to be exposed somehow.
They were going to show off my pails and rails.
No, I just figured my immobility was going to get exposed.
So yeah, this can be a very, especially the lifting of the legs, can be quite difficult. And I'm sorry if you guys haven't gotten a lot out of this yet. I think the thoracic spine and shoulder section is going to be like, you guys are going to find some really helpful things for stretching wise. And then at the end, I'm going to do some shoulder mobility exercise or stability exercises, which I think will be quite helpful. But I want to make sure we're clearing, just like I would do with a patient, I'm clearing all of these joints one at a time. All right. Ehab, you really can lift your foot really high off the ground. I don't know if anyone saw that. His foot was like this high off the ground. Can't do it.
Your torso is straight up.
Yeah. Torso straight up. Oh.
Believe me, Alex can tell you the first time, I think she had me do this maybe 4 or 5 months ago at this point. I couldn't move my foot like a centimeter off the ground.
Oh, I can do it better on one side than the other. So just to note. All right, guys, we're going to move to thoracic spine. So What I see a lot of the time is like most people working at the desk at the office just tend to be super locked up in their upper back. And that can have a lot of, you could be really exposed as you do an overhead squat because your upper back is just too tight to allow you all that full shoulder flexion and all that full shoulder, you know, that full shoulder movement that you need. Your upper back actually has to move. So a lot of people don't, and they don't really do a lot before class. So overhead squatting can be really difficult. So here's how we're going to test thoracic mobility. I'm going to demo it first, then I'm going to have Doug come in and show you his, because I think his is going to be, what do you think it's going to be? I think this is going to be like a good example of like not great thoracic spine mobility. I'm calling him out. He's feeling attacked. You're going to sit on your knees or on your shins here. You're going to lock in one elbow. This is hard to see. I'm sorry, guys. You're going to lock in one elbow to your knee, okay? What you will do with the other hand, you're going to put it behind your back. I'm trying to do this the best way I can. And then you're going to rotate straight up to the ceiling. What I don't want to see is that you guys start to shift or do anything weird like that. You're literally, like if there was a rod in your back, you're just going to twist open. And from shoulder to shoulder, or with the horizontal angle of the floor, should be about like 50 degrees of movement. Okay, so if you want to come up to the camera, and maybe I can see some of yours, but Doug, can you come here so I can show them yours? What? All right, so sit in front of the camera. I'll see if the, turn the other towards the camera. Good, okay. Put your butt on your heels. Put the elbow next to your, okay, put this hand behind your back. And then, so just rotate as much as you can. Right there. So you can have somebody put their hand here, so go back down. So what I don't want you to do is lean into this shoulder. So just rotate without pushing me. Is that harder?
Oh yeah.
A little bit more difficult. Doug wasn't as tight as I thought. He's still got a pretty good amount of rotation. I would say still a little bit more locked up than I would like to see. So if you want to get in front, if you're having trouble deciding if it's good or bad, just like I'll go through and look at people. If you have like a good, you did good, Doug. We're proud of you. I don't know if you recognize him with his hair like that long. Brooke, that looked good. Wait, can you move the camera back a little bit, Brooke? Oh, Brooke, you look good. Brooke looks fine. Wait, Ehab, put your elbow in front of your knee like this. Yeah, and then rotate without trying to like push into that shoulder. Yeah. That looks a little better. Is it Sherry? Yeah, okay, maybe, yes, okay. Sherry, you look good. Yep. So what this is doing is it's locking out your lumbar spine so that, because when you're in the bottom of an overhead squat, your lumbar spine is like at full capacity of like pretty much flexion. So you're not moving it at all. So we're purely looking at that rotation. Now, this is where I think a lot of actually people's problems are. So what I like to do, I'm like trying to find a good spot out of the sun. What I like to do is start with the foam roller on the back. When you foam roll, Doug, can you grab me the foam roller? When you foam roll, the most important thing is to really tuck your hips underneath and to flatten out your low back. Because I see far too many people overarched on the foam roller all throughout their low back, and that actually is gonna be not really stretching your back. Oh, he got me with a hard one. So you wanna make sure you're tucking the belly and really trying to reach back with just the upper back. So I'm constantly squeezing, constantly correcting my hips here. Trying to reach up. So first I would start there. I'm not a big foam roll fan if that's the only thing you do. What I think is actually helpful next is to do rotations with, if you do have a band, you can use a band like strapped up to a, like a bed post or something like that. Put your arm through it and then have it, if it was pulling you this way, pull you. So that you can work on just that pure rotation that's gonna help pull you in that direction. And then another one of my faves, do you guys have any bands at home? Like do people have, did anyone take like green bands, red bands, anything like that? Oh, Brooke has some. because I'll give you another option of another very like lovely thoracic stretch that I like, and like in more of like an active mobility. Okay, those bands may work. I'm gonna show you this one on the rig because I like it quite a bit. I think Ehab, I may have showed you this one. It was like from Kristen, was it Kristen Holta? Had that crazy band warm up, Doug? So you put the band on the rig, kind of low. You step into it. And then the band is up here at your thoracic spine. While you're in your squat position, which is pretty functional for the overhead squat, what you'll do is you'll arch away from the band and then up towards the band. Again, away, up towards. And then from here, you can work some rotation. So this one's another one I like. You can also work overhead squats in this position and really see if keeping a tall torso position, having the band assist you in that, actually may be a really nice variation for you guys to practice. All right, especially while you don't have super heavy weights to load up. That's like a nice way to practice the overhead squat. If you don't have bands, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Does that support you, or does that provide a weight that you work against?
No, this actually is more supportive in nature. Like it helps me stay really, really upright. I just think it's a nice variation to practice, like, you know, overhead. If you have like a PVC or something, they still are pretty hard, especially if you're sitting in that position for a while. You're building up quite a bit of like tension and like that isometric hold. So that's something I would suggest. You may also work on some reach and rolls. So if you're lying on your side, legs up towards your chest as much as you can, arm is out straight next to you, you will reach towards that hand, and then you will open up towards the other direction. You will roll up and open. So this is another really nice prep for overhead squats. So did anyone find that their thoracic spine was significantly limited? Or they feel tight? Yeah. Do you have a desk job? Yeah. I find that that's just like pretty correlated, especially the people in the afternoon, like the evening class folks. They come in, they're all like very like keyboard warriored out. All right, the big hitter, the shoulders. Okay, we're gonna go through these quickly. So there's a few ways to measure if you have enough range of motion. So this is actually shoulder flexion, is when you bring the arm up and over your head. So you can do this a few ways. One, you can lie down flat on the floor. What you can do, I think the best test is just to go straight for knees to chest, but just as an assessment, lie your legs all the way down flat. Without your ribs popping up into your hand, you're gonna try to reach the arm all the way towards the floor, keeping it nice and straight. So you can see from the side here, my thumb touches the floor. And then I want you guys to assess with the knees up towards the chest. This takes up more length on your lat, and this is going to be more difficult to do. So I want to see if you guys can see my hand. This is a good one for my range of motion restrictions. So if my legs are straight, I can pretty much get my whole hand to the floor. Once my legs are up, knees are to my chest, I have about here. So a little bit different for me, especially side to side. My right arm is much more flexible than my left. And I can see it when I overhead squat, I twist, because my one arm is more flexible than the other. So this is a nice test. Is anyone unable to touch the floor when their knees are really, really tucked up close to their chest? And make sure the ribs aren't really popping up too much. A little bit is okay, but anything where you lose, if your back lifts up off the floor, then you have gone too far. I have to make you picky like PTs. It's not just about doing it. It's about doing the movement right so we can figure out what's going on. Can you help me? Can you move this? Can you move the stack for me? Did anyone have like severe restrictions in shoulder flexion, or anyone feel their back come off the floor or their, or anything like that? No? People were good there? Oh, good. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you to do a different one because this one's gonna be A little bit more, I think this one's more difficult, and it can show us if your lat, so your big muscle that runs from here, the side of your arm, this one, that runs all the way down and connects to your low back, if that's more of the issue, or if we have to kind of move on to something else. So this one, I'm gonna have you guys sit against the wall. You're gonna long sit against the wall. It's hard being your own camera person, guys. You're going to have your grip slightly wider than your shoulder width. And what you're going to do is trying to keep the back connected to the wall. Lift the PVC up and overhead. If anyone can see, my right arm is touching, my left arm is not yet touching. Now it is. So both of my hands were able to touch the wall. I can come back down, and I will retry that with my palms up towards the ceiling. So it's a supinated grip, so palms up. Now I can't touch the wall. Is there anyone like me out there who can touch the wall? And make sure, again, low back needs to stay on the wall. So really drive down that rib cage. Did anyone have a similar problem where once their palms were up towards the ceiling, they couldn't reach the wall?
No.
Thought there would be more like me out there, maybe not. Brooke, are you okay? You're good? Good, shoulders are good. Oh, Kelly can't reach the wall. Okay, good, because I'm jazzed about the shoulder exercises, so I'm hoping that there's some useful shoulder ones in here for you guys. Ehab, are your shoulders open and okay? Yeah, good. Okay, so the next thing we want to try, so say you do have more restrictions when your palms are up towards the ceiling, right? Then you kind of want to test, is it actually my lat, or is it something called my posterior rotator cuff? They're two different structures, so the lat is going to be tendinous and more muscular, and then the rotator cuff itself is more like ligamentous. So we need to tease out the two. And the way we can do that is measure how much internal rotation we have. So now you're seeing all my weaknesses exposed. So internal rotation of the shoulder, you will put your elbow on your knee and you'll start with your hand parallel to the floor. Trying to keep the shoulder nice and steady. What you don't want to do is you don't want the shoulder joint to kind of roll forward. You want to keep your shoulder blade back against your spine. And you're going to try to push your hand towards the floor, not like this, but try to push the whole forearm down. And you should be able to greatly break parallel. I have a lot of trouble and basically start to get here before I get a lot of tightness. So that indicates to me that I have a whole lot of posterior cuff tightness versus my lat, right? So if I had trouble doing this, my lats are a little bit tight, but a lot of it I think is actually driven from the back of my rotator cuff being very, very tight. So I'm gonna go through some epic exercises to kind of address working with limited space. Sorry, I'm catching up on comments. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite exercises to address these things. And then we're basically onto the shoulder stability stuff, which I think you guys will find interesting and probably be able to incorporate in your quarantine WODs. So my favorite fixes for any shoulder mobility restrictions, one, while we're sitting here for that internal rotation one, is going to be to grab like a very light weight. Could be a can of soup or something like that. You will be in the same test position and you're going to do eccentric loading. So you're going to go very slowly, let the weight kind of pull you in. You might have to use your other hand to help you up. But again, you're going to drop down, trying to keep your shoulder blade tucked and tight. And then you're going to keep doing these. Or you can do a classic sleeper stretch, which is pretty much like, I think most people, maybe if they've ever done shoulder rehab, they've probably given these. This one where you push it down and keep pushing until you get a nice big stretch, and that's your posterior cuff. If you're having trouble with your lat length, my favorite exercise is really this shoulder opener here on a bench or a bed. Probably going to be the easiest way to do this. You will be knees up towards your chest, arms up over your head, nice and straight. You're gonna lower as much as you can. Nice big stretch. Pull the kettlebell into your chest, back overhead. That one is probably my all-time favorite shoulder opener ever. So I would definitely try to incorporate that in your routine. Even if your shoulders were like kind of okay, that one for any type of opening throughout the day as you are working quite, furiously on your computers nowadays and everyone's like at home, definitely give that a try off the edge of your bed with like you can use any sort of weight that you have. 18 pounds is like starting to get on the heavier side for me. Before it feels like my lat is about to pop off. So something to consider weight-wise. Doesn't need to be very heavy, and it's something you can easily do during this time. All right. The external rotation test is how much you can move basically how much you can externally rotate your shoulder, and you need to be able to do that at the top of the lift, right? So the easiest test for that is to get against a wall. Doing all this before it gets too dark in here. So you'll be in that front rack position with your hand, like elbow in the front rack position. And what you should be able to do is, can you move your hand laterally? I'm trying to get this at a better angle. So can I move my hand again out to the side a little bit? So this is maybe straight on neutral. Can I move out to the side? So this means I probably have enough. It's like 30 degrees, but that's enough external rotation for me to do this movement. If you have trouble with this one, honestly, working kind of here in a doorway is quite helpful, and then doing lift-offs with your hand, where you keep the elbow in line and you're just working on lifting the arm off the wall. I don't think most people will have a problem in that direction. If you do, let me know, but that one is usually fine for most people. Usually you can move the arm out just enough and rotate that shoulder out just enough. Are we good? Cool. Okay, so the last thing is gonna be the wrist. Again, I think this is probably somewhere most of you are fine, but just to be a good PT, I have to include it. You're gonna place your hand on the floor, full contact. Ooh, sorry, that's my weird elbow. We'll do my more normal one. You're going to keep the fingertips nice and flat. You're gonna rock forward as much as you can, keeping the palm in contact with the floor to assess range. Your forearm should break parallel. And if you wanted to fix for this movement, you would just do the test. You would just do this to make sure you're nice and warm for overhead squat day. Does anyone have a wrist restriction? Because you do need a bit of wrist mobility to this exercise. Ehab is good. Sherry's good. There you go. And this is a spot in your body that may be pretty neglected. I know it is for me, and I probably should warm them up more. So maybe hitting just a few of these before overhead squat day would be really helpful. And we're about to get into basically the rehab or stability section. So say you pass all the mobility tests, you pass them with flying colors and you still are having trouble overhead squatting. What there really might be is a lack of stability in your shoulders or control. So the exercises listed here are very simple exercises. What I think that their benefit is if you're like me, you have shoulder pain doing overhead squats, they're perfect rehab exercises. And like I said, during this time when you can't really load really heavy, you're not doing as intense workouts, maybe just picking a 15-minute EMOM of some of these shoulder stability exercises a few times a week will be really beneficial in the long run, so that when you come back to the gym, this is gonna be a lot easier to do these movements. So I think a lot of the time CrossFitters neglect working on and prone, so laying flat on the floor. So I'm gonna show you some hurdles with prone swimmers, prone hurdles, and PVC liftoffs. So, if I get this far enough away from me. So the prone hurdle, Ehab knows these are hard. You will lay flat with your hand on one side of the kettlebell. You're gonna try to lift your hand off the floor, come around the kettlebell, and this is all with your face down, right? So this is a great exercise to do after those shoulder openers. So after you've worked on really opening up the shoulder, this is how you create stability and control in the end ranges of your shoulder flexion. Okay, so if you're having a lot of trouble in overhead squats, you're feeling very shaky and it's very uncomfortable, this is where you would go. So you can do this variation. If you want to work with 2 hands, you sure can do that. You can do prone lift-offs. And again, you're trying not to let the movement come from your back, your like low back. I don't want you arching the whole chest up, just the shoulders. So those would be those PVC prone lift-offs. Does anyone do any of these exercises now, besides maybe Ehab? Because I know you do.
What is that last one supposed to do for you?
This one, this is again working on the end range of your shoulder flexion.
So it stretches it out.
Yeah, and it helps you like really get control at that last like really, really sticky range. So for me, I'm quite tight in my shoulder. Like you can see how tight my lat is here. And to lift is really, really difficult. And I'm trying to make the movement happen purely from my shoulder and not here from my spine. So I'm just trying to lift my arm up and not my whole body, if that makes sense. Or you can do prone swimmers. So hands start with thumbs on the floor. You come all the way up. Thumbs up in the air. And again, just a different variation to work kind of the same thing. Now, I want everyone to do these ones with me because these are hard. So for your thoracic mobility and for your shoulder mobility, you're going to do these reach, roll, and lifts. If you Google reach, roll, lift, a video will come up with the right thing. You're going to be in this tucked up position. Elbows are against your knees. You're going to put your forehead on your fist. You're going to reach one hand out. You're going to roll the hand towards the side. And then you're going to lift the arm up. And then you'll come down and come back in. Sorry, hand will go flat. So you'll go hand flat, thumb up, reach up, thumb down, back in. Can you guys try those? Really make sure your butt is like, your low back and butt are tucked back as far as they can be. Nice. And what you want to avoid is a lot of movement of your spine. So you don't want to really twist open to the side. You want to make sure that, again, just your shoulder is lifting up there. I find these really hard. Does anyone else? Brooke, aren't they hard?
Somehow both my shoulders just popped. Like,
Oh, good.
yeah.
It's a mobility seminar. Like maybe it's a good thing.
But yeah, they're really hard.
They're really hard. So these ones I would definitely work on because now you're working on your thoracic spine and shoulder kind of at the same time. And while you're in quarantine, please do not forget to work on your overhead carries. So walking with kettlebells or weights over your head is another great and easy way to work on stability and also mobility. So that was another option I've listed there. Z presses, I'm sure most people know, are when you're sitting. This is another shoulder opener. Kelly can barely move her hand up. Yeah, it's really hard. Z presses will be here. Another great way to work shoulder opening. And then lastly, the last few are the overhead squat with the band around the upper back I showed you at the rig. Squat Ys are actually another great variation and warm up for overhead squats. With really light weights, you'll be in your deep squat position and you will do Ys. I'm feeling more open now too. Ooh, that's good. My left arm is happening a little bit better. So squat Ys are another great option for you to get your shoulders nice and open. So how I want you guys to use this guide, and I will stay on to look at overhead squats after this for like the next 15 minutes. But how to use this guide. Work systematically through it, figure out where you're lacking in flexibility, which we did today. Perform passive tissue mobilization. So like use a lacrosse ball in your posterior cuff in your lat or do foam rolling on your lat if that's what you want to do first to warm up. And if that makes you feel more open, understand that it might not create tissue length. It's not going to sit there and like lengthen your tissues and like make your lat longer. What it does is it just gives you a neurological response to kind of relax and kind of loosen up. So definitely do those things first, but then go into these stability exercises, these prone stability exercises, and then perform overhead squat variations to where your skill level are. So maybe working with PVC with your heels elevated, and your heels may need to be elevated on multiple plates, right? It doesn't matter. And then just try to scale it back down every time you try it. Tempo overhead squats are another awesome variation for you guys to work on, nice and slow, stopping at all these points that are a little bit difficult for you. Maybe stopping here, 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 here. Or it could look like heavy loaded overhead squats. Like maybe your problem is just need to get stronger. So that's how I want you guys to work through that guide. So if you have more specific questions for me, want me to look at your overhead squat with brooms, PVCs, weights, whatever, please, I will show them. Just unmute and talk to me. But for now, you guys enjoy your Friday night. Thanks for hanging with me. I miss you guys lots. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I was really hoping Lemon would be,
So
joining.
we did this purposefully at the gym because if I did all this at home with me like on the floor, did anyone watch like my push-up video with him? That I don't know. He was like barking manically at me. So like I was like, I need to be in the gym to do this. Like there's no way I could do it at home.
Yeah. Oh, I miss
But, yeah, hopefully we can actually do this seminar in person. I'm kind of just like putting a feeler out for things that work, what didn't work. I love feedback. So please write me like a quick DM or like Facebook message about like what you liked, what didn't like. It's obviously easier to do this stuff in a group because we can like pull examples out. I can look at everyone a little bit better, but I at least wanted to get the information out to you guys now if you wanted to start working on mobility while you have all this extra time.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful to give us an easy way to assess, to like figure out where our individual sticking points are, and then giving us that like systematic way to warm up according to what our sticking point is also really helpful.
Like for me, my ankles are so mobile that like and I wear lifters on top of it that I don't even need to warm up my ankles. Like I warm up a few squats, but then like 90% of my warm up is dedicated to my shoulders before I snatch or overhead squat.
Yeah.
Because that's how I want you guys to treat it too, and just be able to find like, pick 3 of the movements. Like I commonly do EMOMs that are kind of like minute 1 foam roll, minute 2 maybe lacrosse ball directly to the cuff, minute 3 prone shoulder hurdles, minute 4 tempo PVC overhead squats, and then I'll do that 4 times to warm up. And that's what my warm up looks like. So it's like very CrossFit-esque, and it keeps me moving instead of just like lazily foam rolling for 20 minutes and not getting anything done. And I feel like that is gets me a lot more accomplished and a lot further. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, it was nice to see you. Sherry, it was nice to see you.
I have just a couple questions. Why do you elevate your heel on the plate?
Yes. Okay. So you would elevate your heels on plates if you have a big ankle restriction, because what that does is it basically gives you a little bit extra range of motion. So if my ankle's restricted, like it doesn't bend very far, if I lift my heel up a little bit and elevate, I've given myself a lot more range to work through. And for a lot of people with tight ankles that don't bend well, just elevating the heel a little bit can create a lot more space. And then they are squatting almost normally, right? They can let that knee translate over their ankle. So if you had an ankle restriction, then I would recommend trying ankles or heels on plates. And I think I've had people squatting on like 10-pound plates before. So something quite big, just to see like, is it really their ankle? And if your squat, you video it, is much better on plates, then you can probably think that ankle is impacted.
Okay, also, my problem is really my strength in my glutes, and probably mobility through my pelvis would be helpful, flexible there. But it's basically strength. Yeah. But you say to go down into a squat and hold it for a minute or 2 minutes. How do you do that to strengthen without ruining your meniscus. Because I feel I don't have the strength to do that.
To kind of hang. So what we're finding more and more in the PT world, in the literature, is that deep squats are actually inherently not bad for your knees. And they're finding actually that the most provocative positions for meniscus and like intra-joint ligaments are actually squats to just 90 degrees. Like that puts the most force on your knees as if we stop here. The deep squats are inherently not as, they don't put as much force on the kneecap. They don't put as much force on the joint, or sorry, the structures in the inside of your knee. And they're actually a lot healthier for your knee to go through the full range of motion. I would say like working tempo is probably more important for you at this point to get stronger and feel stronger in the positions. So when you use tempo, you're not going to be able to use so much weight. So that probably is a great starting point for you to just work on really slow overhead squats, maybe 5 seconds down, hold for a second or two, and then 5 seconds even back up. I really like that as a variation to like learn where I am in space and to get stronger without having to load really heavy weights. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can go, I know what you're saying, because if I just let it go and go way to the bottom,
Yeah.
I'm down there, but when you come back up.
I would try those like 5 second lowers, 5 seconds back up, because that makes me feel incredibly strong and like aware of my positions versus like kind of like hanging out at the bottom, getting really lazy and then trying to drive up really fast. Like, because from right here, I try to squeeze my butt really, really hard and come up, and I can feel all that connection just by just going slower.
All right, good.
Try that on the way up. Yeah, anyone else?
Much.
Yeah. Squat without shoes on. Oh yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, everyone should probably try some squats. Does Sam make you wear no shoes in the clinic?
No, I'm always wearing shoes, but it was just a personal observation. Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely Aja Bardo, AJA Bardo. He always works out with no shoes on. He was like a former CrossFit Games athlete. He's one of the tall guys, like 6'5", and he never works out with shoes on anymore. He's like a big proponent of like trying to connect to your feet. So try it. You have all this home workout time. Hopefully not for much longer, but you know. Take advantage, get better at something, like pick a goal. So if overhead squats are your goal, maybe this is a perfect time to try something new. All right, guys. If there's no more questions, I'll let you all be free. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. I'm going to enjoy some big buns now. So I hope you guys have a good rest of the evening. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, you're welcome.